So language is important. And this is something that I spoke briefly about in our virtual presentation. And there's a difference between the word slave and enslaved. Slave is a noun which implies that this is one's identity. So when you use phrases like runaway slave, escaped slave, fugitive slave, even if you were to use the phrase free slave, in your mind, you're still implying that slave is a person's identity and not a condition. So if you look at enslaved, that's an adjective which actually communicates that it's a condition that one has experienced and not their identity. So there's a very different perspective from a person being a slave as opposed to a person being enslaved. And it's important that we understand that as a foundation, because when you use the phrase enslaved person or enslaved people, you're restoring the sense of humanity back to people of African descent. And when you restore that sense of humanity back to people of African descent, you're also restoring that sense of intelligence, that sense of ingenuity, that sense of creativity. Because when we talk about this network to freedom, that's very sophisticated. If you're not looking at people of African descent as being human beings with the capability and the intelligence to create that network, in your mind, you're going to start associating people with the establishment of this network that were not instrumental in creating this network and giving people credit that do not deserve credit for creating this network to freedom, which also means that it's important that we center the voices of people of African descent. Because when we talk about this network to freedom that we know as the Underground Railroad, it was by and for people of African descent. Even though it was the first human rights movement in the Western Hemisphere, it was led by people of African descent.